Good morning. Welcome to our Marketing Monday webinar. Very pleased to have you join us. We're going to give everybody just a few moments to connect in through our Zoom webinar. So we invite folks to be patient with us. It'll be just a few moments. We've got a very large crowd with us. As people are gathering, remind you, if you have a question, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a box for Q&A. If you will post your question in the Q&A, and then at the end of our program, we'll do our best to address those. So very excited to have you join us. Just we've got everybody muted, so we don't have those kind of interruptions in the sense of when you try to get 100 people talking at once, it can sometimes be hard to hear everybody. So just remind everybody, you are on mute on purpose, and that's why if you have a question, please post it in the Q&A box that is in the bottom of your menu. We'll give everybody just a few more moments. Just do a quick check-in. Great. We've got a very, very large crowd for a Monday. Glad everybody could join us. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm your host for this morning. I'm Drew Tonsmeyer. I serve as the Area Director of the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center. My office is in North Metro Atlanta at Kennesaw State. But the University of Georgia SBDC, we have 17 offices across the state. And we're so pleased that we're able to provide all of our webinar training throughout the rest of the year at no cost to you, thanks to additional funding through the CARES Act. So the SBDC has been able to broaden our mission, which is to educate entrepreneurs of how to make their businesses more profitable. And I think there's probably in this day and age of what we're dealing with, there's probably no more important area than digital marketing. And we all look to our websites to help us be one of those proactive reaches that we connect to our customers and potential customers. So very pleased to have a web expert with us this morning. Let me introduce Joe Norton. Joe is a partner at Helium and Helium Sites. He began his career in technology at Hewlett-Packard before moving to the business strategy side of a technology consulting firm. In addition to his expertise in targeted solution, Joe is a certified Scrum Master. You're going to have to tell us about that, Joe. An Ironman finisher. Joe has worked with clients that include Bimbo, that is a very large bakery concern, Coates and Clark, Hanesbrands, and Smithfield Foods. So, Joe, very pleased that you're able to join us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I'm going to turn the program over to Joe, and he's going to guide us into how we can avoid making mistakes with our websites.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks, everyone, for allowing me to spend the morning with you. I'm going to sort of jump right into it here in a second, and then I'll give a little bit of background on myself as well. And again, as you mentioned, happy to talk through any questions you may have at the end, but looking forward to spending a little bit of time with you. So we're going to talk through the websites that we've seen that have issues, these 5 common issues that we just see so often that can be avoided. And we've learned a lot of these by working with some of these larger brands or serial entrepreneurs. And there's small tweaks. There are things that you can do on your own. There's things you can do if you have a Wix website or a Squarespace website or WordPress or whoever, or if you have a web guy. These are small changes, and they don't require you to go off and spend 10 grand on a new website, or in some cases more than that. So a little bit of background. Again, my name is Joe Norton. This is me with a normal haircut, so forgive my COVID haircut. But I'm an Atlanta guy. I wasn't born here, but I was raised here from 2nd grade on, so as far back as I can recall, I'm an Atlanta guy. I went to West Georgia and as he mentioned a moment ago. Started my career at Hewlett-Packard before moving into a consulting firm. And over the last few years, I've managed to start a handful of businesses, and the most recent being Helium Sites. Over time, I've had the pleasure of working, and my team has had the pleasure of working with a lot of big brands and a lot of pretty successful entrepreneurs. A few of our other clients that we worked with also include Deloitte, Emory, Boston Consulting Group, Northside Hospital, Brill. We've been blessed to work with some pretty big brands and help them go to market with some pretty complex and big projects. But these big companies have also enormous budgets, right? And us as small business owners, myself included, I don't have the same budgets they do, of course. But it's not true that you need a big budget to have a successful website. That's just not the case. And a lot of times I think websites are oversold. They're overcomplicated. A successful website is really based on a formula of a few things. And that's how you can generate new customers. You can generate volunteers if you're a nonprofit. But really, whatever it is that thing you need, it's really a framework. So today I want to show you some of the tips and tricks that we've learned from these big companies and just from successful brands. And these are the things that at Helium Sites that we apply to every single website that we create. And I want to show you those things so you can figure out how you can do that within your existing website, or if you're thinking about making a new website, make sure you don't miss these handful of critical features. So every single one of you is totally capable of doing this. Even if you're not technical, there's resources out there. Really, a big shout out to Wix and Squarespace. They can do these things, or you can do these things inside of their platforms. WordPress, you can do these things out of their platforms, or you can, again, work with a web company. But if you're on a tight budget, you can do some of this for under $50 a month and have a website. And if you have a bigger budget, you can pay someone to do it. But today, it really is, it's about understanding the proven layout and conversion tactics to help you get more business or whatever it is you're seeking. So let's get started. We're going to go through 5 big items. Number one.
And Joel, we'll get you to share your screen if you don't mind.
Oh my goodness. Well, good start for the tech guy, huh? All right, let me jump in here real quick. Forgive me. I appreciate that. Let me click share. Let's try that again. All right. How are we looking now? Are you guys seeing a big picture of my face?
Perfect.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, there you go. See, even us tech guys have our stumbles with technology. Let's go back a second. So here you go. There's a picture of me versus what you can see now with a very different haircut. But again, Atlanta guy, West Georgia, and then on to a few different companies, and now at Helium Sites. Want to give a quick shout out to my team here. So here's the group of folks that work with us. And again, just to kind of get back in the groove, you don't need a huge budget to have a great website. You don't need a bunch of technical skills to put in these proven tactics and layout and conversion tools that you can use. So now that we have my screen showing, let's jump into number one. Number one is no call to action. I see this on so many websites that I go to where I land on their site and there's a lot of content, there's cool pictures and videos and things zipping around, but I don't know what to do. And if I don't have one clear thing to do, I'm so much less likely to pick up the phone and call you or press that button and make that decision. So when it comes to a call to action, there's 4 big rules that I'd like you to think about. And if you don't know what a call to action is, let's take a step back. A call to action is just a marketing term, and it's just a prompt to get you to make an immediate response or to encourage an immediate sale. So on an Amazon, it would be buy now. On Hulu, it would be, here's a free trial. It's really just that one thing. The number one goal of that company, so in Hulu's case, they want you to do a trial, so then you'll buy their service, or Amazon, they want you to buy the next item. What is that one thing that your business needs? So rule number 1 is to make that call to action your top priority. So often I'll land on a website and there's 2 buttons or 3 buttons, that tell me, well, let's use a nonprofit. It would be volunteer, donate, donate in kind, and then contact us. It'll be 3 or 4 different things I need to do, when really you need one item. Because if you give people 2 decisions and 3 decisions, it gets more and more taxing on them. We want them to have one thing, and it should always be the most important thing for your business. And just because it's your top priority, it doesn't mean it can't change over time. So today, if you're that nonprofit, it may be we need donations. And in 90 days, it may be we need volunteers. You can change that overall business objective, but on your website, there needs to be one very clear top priority. Rule number 2, make it big and clear. And I mean literally make it a big button. A tiny little call to action shows a lack of confidence. It doesn't really promote someone wanting to click onto that button and make that decision. So physically make it a big button and make it very clear, and don't make it, you should sign up today to become a volunteer button. It should be volunteer today, or buy now, or schedule a call. Something very big, very clear. Rule number 3, this one gets a little bit more into the weeds. I see a lot of great websites, and they have a lot of pieces together. They have a bunch of calls to action, and that's great, but they blend right into the site because they're using the same colors and color scheme and design as the rest of the website. Your call to action should stand out. I should see it from a mile away on your website. It doesn't have to match your branding. It doesn't have to be within your brand essence or color scheme or what have you. It can jump right off the page. So don't be afraid to make it big and bold. I'd much rather you have a call to action that completely clashes with the rest of your site than that it blend in. Now, ideally, we find something that has a nice balance, but big and bold, you can't go wrong. And then rule number 4, follow your visitor everywhere they go. You can't have one call to action and they scroll down the page and then they have to scroll all the way back up to then go and schedule that call or book that meeting. You want those calls to action all throughout the site. And I'm going to show you an example of that here in just a moment. And then sort of a bonus, borderline rule number 5, but it's something you can do to get even better calls to action, is offer something for free. And it doesn't need to be something that costs you money, but it could be, hey, here's a free download, right? And you can maybe collect an email address, or hey, here's a 15-minute call. And they can have that quick call and have an intro call, and it promotes them to get into that call to action. But just keep in mind, it doesn't have to be high tech to be high conversion. A click to a video chat nowadays is so much easier than it used to be. And you don't have to do anything over the top techie to say, click this button and it sends me an email and I'll set up a Zoom chat like we're having right now. You don't have to get really technical for someone to have a great call to action. So I'm going to use my own website and basically strip away different features, and then we'll build them back in so you can see the difference of having a feature. So in this case, our call to action, as you can see, we landed this website, really, really simple, just not a lot going on. There's a lot of context, a lot of text, a lot of copy. There's just not much to look at. And nothing here tells me exactly what to do. So when it comes to calls to action, there's 2 places I want you to always put a call to action. Top right corner, and then center of the page, right? Ideally, our logo is top left, and it kind of follows a Z pattern. So we go logo, call to action, and then track down to my next call to action, right? So I'm going to go from here. There's a little bit of a lag with our internet, so I'm going to wait a second. We have our very basic, nothing really going on here site, to boom, schedule a call. And again, if you see, top right corner, bright and green, center of the page, very big button, even bigger than the top right corner. And it's different than everything else on our website. So this is a case where you don't need to be afraid to go bold. This green has nothing to do with our branding. It's found nowhere else on any collateral that we have, except for on our website. And it's because that call to action truly needs to stand out. So what you will notice, and another thing that I've found folks that have a great bright call to action in the top right corner, And then in the middle of their page, the call to action is completely different. And further down the page is another call to action, but it looks a little different. So they'll go from green to blue to yellow. We don't want that. We want it to be very consistent. And that means the call to action button should look the same all throughout. So in our case, it's a gradient green and it's nice and bright, all caps, schedule a call. Everywhere down our page, you'll see that repeatedly. And the next thing I want to show you guys is that it's going to follow you throughout the site. So I want to pull up my own website here. Let me give it a second. As you can see, here's our website. And if I scroll up, you can see one call to action, two call to action. And as I scroll, I'll pause here. Here's another call to action. And as I scroll, I don't let you, for the most part, go without at least, you always have one, ideally two, and in some cases three. I scroll a bit more, still two calls to action. We have a little break in calls to action here. And then we get another. And then if I scroll to the bottom, to the actual offerings, I go all the way to three calls to action. If I scroll a little further, at some point, I have 5 calls to action all in one page. And I know this feels like it. Initially, when I was learning this, I thought it seems pushy. It seems like an awful lot of big green buttons, or on any website, a lot of bold calls to action. But truly, you want to treat this borderline like an infomercial. You know, buy now, buy now, buy now. Here's what we do. We grow your business. Call to action. Don't miss out on a client. Call to action, and so on and so on. You cannot go wrong with having too many calls to action as long as they are consistent. And as long as they are big and bold and clear. So that's big rule number 1. We're going to jump on to rule number 2. And again, if you have any questions, please write them down or please pass them along. And I'd love to hear them here at the end. So secondly, I see so many sites with an unclear message. I'm not a writer. I'm not a copywriter. I don't love writing. But if there's one thing that you really want to put some effort into, and just get the messaging right on, it's when you load that page at first. Beyond your site, I hate to say it, but people do not read. We live in a world of Instagram and constant news cycles and billboards and flashing lights and everything. People don't read. And I have the proof behind the scenes when it comes to looking at the websites that people are going to. They spend fractions of seconds on the block tree read. They spend a lot more time looking at pretty pictures or calls to actions and big, bold statements. So when it comes to your messaging, keep it really clear. And again, not a writing workshop today, but when it comes to the top of your page, when it first loads, when your page loads, keep it very, very clear. Number 2 is make sure that it is not about yourself. If I land on your site and you say, I'm the best roofer because blah, 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 doesn't matter. Make it about me, right? Like be proud of my home or apply to something that's going to make me want to buy that roof or whatever it is you're selling. But do not make it about yourself. Make it about the person visiting and try to keep it very brief. 10 words is really too much. 8 words is kind of my mental cutoff. If I can get it down to 5, which is what we've done on Helium sites, that's great. If I could somehow make it 2 or 1, that'd be even better. When someone lands, I don't want them to burn a single calorie processing that page. I want to be very clear of what they do and how it's going to help the visitor of that website. And again, you don't have to over-explain this. You don't have to say, we do this, 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 and this. Here's why we're great, da, da, da. That's what the rest of your website's for. The main piece of your site is very simple sentence about how you're going to make my life better. And then last, don't be afraid of large text, right? Make it big, make it easy to read. Throughout the site, you can have a normal size font, but on your landing page, or when you first land that website, make it big, make it bold. So again, we're gonna sort of look at our site. So here we are, and you can see I have a really long tagline in here, right? And we build, host, maintain, update websites for small businesses that look nice for $149 a month. That's way too much, way too complicated, just, I mean, borderline overwhelming. I have to think a lot. I really just want to know right to the point, right? And I've overcomplicated it here, right? And I've started to talk about myself because we build them instead of saying that it's for you. And it just becomes a lot to process. So if you look at what we actually have on our website, very big statement. I'm able to, if we jump back, you see I had to reduce the size of my font if I have more, a longer sentence. So the shorter the sentence, the bigger the copy, the more to the point I can be. So we'll jump back again. And it's websites that grow your business, right? If you notice, it's your business. We focus on the visitor, not on ourselves. It's very, very short. And I've already said this 10 times, but I'll probably say it 10 more times. People do not read on websites. They glance, they're not reading every word. Get to the point, keep it really, really clear. And then last, don't try to be cute. Don't try to use buzzwords. If a 6-year-old and an 80-year-old can't both understand it, it's probably not a great message. No one should have to be in your industry to understand it. It should be just crystal clear, right? So if you're a painter, it should be, your house will look amazing, or I'm like, maybe that's off the fly, but in our case, again, websites that grow your business, not we do this, 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 and this. It's just to the point. You want your business to grow, we make websites, and we're going to help you grow. So that's another, again, big, big point. Don't try to be cute. And I can give you our own example. At one point, we tried websites that that lift your business. That's Helium. It elevates. It's cute. And the data proved that while it was fun to have a cute website and say something kind of fun, the results were worse. So we went back to try and grow, and grow has performed much better. And again, we took out a buzzword, we took out a sort of a cute, fun thing, and focused on really just getting to the point. Number 3 would be not mobile friendly. And a lot of you may be saying, of course my site's mobile friendly, but you'd be amazed at how many folks I see that do not have a mobile friendly site. And it may be because they have a legacy site that they've had around for years, they made a big investment, and they don't want to scrap it, or it costs a ton of money to convert it to a mobile website. But I can tell you, if your site is not mobile, that should be, quite frankly, your top priority. A couple of things I want to keep in mind on mobile: keep your call to action on mobile. You still want that big, bold button. But I just want to talk through a couple of quick stats about mobile and why it's so important. In the fourth quarter of 2019, mobile devices, and I'm talking phones, not tablets, generated about 53% of all website traffic. And a few years before that, it was teetering, it was in the mid to high 40s. And I would imagine here in the next year or two, it might be closer to 60%. But folks are living on their mobile devices. Even if it's a B2B sale, they're still going to be on their phone when they're laying on the couch or laying in bed or walking from meeting to meeting, or out and about and just checking a quick email and clicking the link to your website. They're going to be looking at your site on a mobile device. And if you're not ready for it, it's bad news. Around 40% of users that go to 40% of folks that go to a poor mobile experience on a website end up leaving and go to a competitor's site. So you are flat out missing 40% of those folks. And then around 57 to 58% of users say they would not recommend a business with a badly designed mobile site. And if you're in the consumer space, I would imagine it's skewed even higher. B2B space, you might have a little bit of leeway, but all in all, we're getting to the point where it's 50-50 of mobile versus web. So if you're not mobile, you are better off, quite frankly, scrapping a really complex, expensive site you may have paid for and going to a one-pager that is mobile and very, very simple. All these websites you see now that come out of the box, the Wix, the Squarespace, they all come mobile out of the box. It's not something you should be paying a bunch of money for. If a web guy tries to tell you like, oh yeah, we make a site with an extra X thousand dollars for mobile, run the other direction. It's just the standard now, and you've got to get up to speed on that. So I want to just kind of talk through things. What happens when you're on a non-mobile site is people end up having to pan all around your site, and they're trying to pinch and zoom and look, or the site becomes really, really tiny on font. And with this, it just creates a terrible user experience, which ultimately they're likely going to leave. But on these sites, I just can't press enough. You still want to keep in mind, I sort of have some mock-ups here with our circles, that we still want to follow that same methodology of having our big calls to action. And this is where you'll see, if we go to the next page, having that really short statement at the top and having a clear message really comes in handy on mobile. Because if this, instead of saying websites that grow your business, was 10 words, it starts to get really long. It pushes our call to action down the page. And again, it just starts to create a really messy experience on mobile. So again, logo at the top, easy to find nav button, very clear short messaging, and a very big call to action that's bright and jumps off the page. Next is speed. So the slow load website, this gets a little bit more into the technical side of things. We're not going to get technical on this call, but I know that folks say like, oh, well, I can't improve the speed. I don't know about servers. I don't know about this. You don't need to worry about that. It's really a matter of understanding the tips and tricks that you can do as a non-technical person to manage this. But before we get into that, about 38% of visitors will leave your site. We call it bouncing. So they will bounce from your site if it takes more than 5 seconds to load. And a lot of times, you know, and I've been guilty of this myself, I give my own company a little more grace and say, it's okay, but I'm biased. So I would say, oh, you know, if my site took 6 seconds, I might say, it's fine, you know, they don't mind, they'll wait. But the reality is, as we know, consumers and customers are brutal. So they will look at it, and if it doesn't take, you know, but 5 seconds to load, they're likely to jump back and just go to the next person on the list. So you really want to try and get that site under 5 seconds, ideally under 3 if you can help it, but under 5 is a pretty good benchmark. And according to Google, and this is why I like to have 3, on mobile, people get even more particular, around 50% of mobile site visits get bounced if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. Fortunately, we have really fast self-service now and things like that, so it's not as big of an issue. But again, we really want to try and get that page speed down. There's page speed up and load speed down. And the easiest way to do this, and again, doesn't have to be technical, don't overload your site with videos, right? If you have a video, link over to YouTube. Put it on YouTube and link it over to YouTube. If you have a picture and it was taken on a DSLR, ask that person, whoever gave it to you, to downsize it for the web. Because if you put a photo into your website that could be blown up to a 15 by 15 portrait on the wall, and your computer's having to scale it down every time they load your site, it's just going to impact your site speed. So there's things you can do. So avoid big clunky videos. And if it's a big long video and it's an explainer video or something like that, link over to a YouTube or a Vimeo. And when it comes to photos, if you don't know how to downsize the photos, work with the person who took the photos, or if you can just Google, you know, resize photos, there's plenty of resources out there. Again, these things don't cost a lot of money and you don't have to be super technical to do them. And then lastly, most websites for small businesses are much bigger than they need to be. The reality is typically a 1 to 5 page website covers everything a small business needs. You really just need someone to get to your site, see your clear message, and press that call to action so they pick up the phone or they set that meeting or what have you. You don't need 400 photos to show if you're, let's say you have a tile business, right? I have tile on my mind, so my bathroom redone this week. But if I'm having a tile website, I don't need 400 photos of tile work you've done. Just show me 10, right? And then that reduces the amount of content that I need to load on that page. I don't need a video of every single job you've ever done. Link over to YouTube. But again, the websites can typically be much smaller than you need them to be, which again also yields spending a lot less money and a lot less time building your site. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the stale blog, and we have in parentheses and content. We often see folks set out with really great intentions when it comes to a blog. And the first month they write a blog post, the second month they write a blog post, the third month it's a little late, fourth month it's missed, and then fifth, sixth, seventh, and ongoing, maybe one blog post gets done a year. I want to be very clear. An old blog is far worse, an old blog is far worse than no blog. You're better off not having the content there than having something that you posted on 3 times and then never went back and revisited. Consistency is really important here. And there's nothing worse than landing on a website and seeing that their blog was last updated in November of 2018. My mind initially goes to, I guess they're out of business, or maybe they're struggling because they can't afford to keep that person writing the blogs, or they just got lazy. So if they can't do that, can they really manage my website? And don't get me wrong, we're all capable of it. Keeping blogs up to date is a total pain if you're not a writer or you don't like writing. So there's a couple of things that if you're going to have a blog, a couple of things I would say. One of my little tricks is don't show the date. So you can choose to have a date when you show your blog. Just drop the date and hide it. And any web guy can do this for you. And again, on Wix or Squarespace, whatever, you can manage that as well. Just hide the date. And that way, if they land there, you don't have a big, bold 2018 or 2017 or 19 stamp right in their face that says they haven't updated this in a long time. Number two, get a blog writer. You can find these folks, they can put a blog together for you for 100 or 150 bucks. And if that's even a high on your budget or what have you, you don't need a blog every week. You don't need a blog every 2 weeks or every month. You really just want to have something that's consistent. So when I land there, I see that you're relevant and you're updating your content on somewhat of a regular basis. And if you can only do 4 a year, do 4 a year, but don't do them January, February, March, April, and then stop. Go, every quarter, space them out further. Again, just to keep your content relevant and to just give that same sort of message to your customer that we're here and we are updating this thing. And then the next thing would be, and I'm not an SEO guy. I know someone on the call that is, and I'm sure he would be happy to speak up and answer questions if SEO stuff comes up today, but I believe he's speaking next week as well. But your content on your blog needs to be unique. Gone are the days where you can go find someone else's blog, copy it, and then make a few tweaks, and then push it on your site. Google's too smart for that. Their engineers, they're brilliant. They have figured out a way to where if you reuse someone's content or reuse pieces of it, they're not going to give you the credit of the SEO results just because you pasted a bunch of content on your site. So if the content's not unique, really there's no point in publishing it. If it's not something special to you and doesn't apply to you and your customers, it really starts to become more busy work than it actually yielding results. But again, not an SEO guy, and SEO will be next week. But I know one thing for sure, that you really want to keep your content up to date, and you want it to be unique, and you want to make sure that it's something that you can manage on an ongoing basis. So let's recap, and we'll have plenty of time. Hopefully we have some questions coming through, but I have a slide here that I want to go through the five key things we've talked through, and then we'll open up the floor here in a moment. So one, you need a bold, clear, reoccurring call to action, and you need this throughout the website. Make sure when it's bold, make it stand out. Don't be afraid to get crazy with colors. Don't be afraid to really make it pop. Make sure it follows me everywhere I go on that website. Up, down, left, right. I should always have, at minimum, one call to action. Ideally, always two. And if you manage to get 3, 4, and then you saw in my case, at one point there's 5, you can't really overdo it. So really follow everywhere I go. And then bonus points if you can give something away or offer something up through your call to action. Next is a simple, clear message. 8 words or less. And just try to keep rethinking through it and keep rethinking through it. And if you can get it to 8 words, try to get to 5 words. 5 words can be tough, but if you can do it and get there, if you can get to 3, even better. But make sure your message is very clear, very short, and do not make it vague, right? Make it very poignant to my needs as a website visitor. My visitors are busy folks that don't have time to manage their website, and they want to grow their business, and websites that grow your business. That's what we're focused on. And again, make it about the customer. Don't make it about yourself. We're the best roofers. No, that's not what they want to hear, right? Make it about them and how you're going to make their life better. So number 3, mobile friendly. This is just a must. It's 2020. We've got to have a mobile friendly site. Google will actually punish you at this point if you do not have a mobile site. So they will actually downgrade your results. So really and truly, you must have a mobile site. If you don't, drop whatever site you have and go get even just a landing page with a call to action and one sentence about what you do. You really need to be mobile friendly so folks can find you on their phones. Over half the folks on the internet are using their phone to get to your website. Relevant content and updated blogs. Again, remember folks, we live in a world of very short attention spans, GIFs, videos, flashing lights, you name it. We want our content to be clear, and you need to make it very on point, and it needs to be up to date. People will find that if you have a blog from 4 years ago, they're going to start questioning you immediately. So please, please, please keep those blogs up to date, keep them short, and remember the easiest tip or trick that you can use is drop dates. Do not have dates on your blog if you cannot keep it up to date, which most folks that I know can't. On our other company websites, we have no dates on any of our blogs, and I tell everyone to do this because just like you all, we get busy, and instead of posting a blog every 2 weeks, it ends up being 6 weeks, and we have to have a gap in there. So don't be afraid to hide those dates and make sure that content is original to you. And then last, number 5, our website speed. You do need a fast website, right? It's the days of being able to say, oh, it's okay, they'll wait. That doesn't happen, right? And we live in such a fast-paced world. Your site needs to load in 5 seconds. If it's not 5 seconds and you're paying someone to manage your site, you need to ask them what you need to do to get it to 5 seconds, and ideally under 3, especially on mobile. If we're still struggling with that, I would then encourage you to look for a really simple site that might replace what you have, rather than investing a ton of money in rebuilding what you might already be working with. Remember, the biggest culprits are big, large-scale photos and videos. Don't be afraid to link someone over to a YouTube channel. YouTube channels, Vimeo channels, they're free, and you can set them up with zero technical experience, and don't be afraid to do that. And then also remember that less content, period, is going to load faster on your site. So you don't need to have, back to our tile example, you don't need 200 pictures of what you've done. You really just need 6 or 7 and a big call to action. Because they'll say, wow, look at these 5 beautiful photos. Yes, I want to press that button. Or look at this one cool video that's 15 seconds long, not 3 minutes long. And then that kind of ends our top 5 items. I want to touch on 3 other tips that didn't quite make the list, but are really, really important. Number 1, if you use a Squarespace or a Wix or a template on WordPress of any kind, do your best not to change it. We see so many times people land on a website, or excuse me, on a template, and they really like it, and then they go in there and start to update it and make some changes and tweaks, and by the time they're done with it, they've completely mucked up the template. And now it looks nothing like what they started with, and they wonder why they get frustrated with their website. Force yourself to fill the content to the template that you choose. Keep in mind with that template, you want to have those call to actions throughout. So be particular about which template you would choose if you're going to build your own website. But please don't make a bunch of changes. If you do, you will very likely end up with the mediocre result when you started with something great that you really loved. Number 2, you don't have to have a new 10-page website tomorrow. The best thing you can do is do these 5 things, right? And quite frankly, just do one of them, right? Just start, even if your site's not mobile friendly, even if your site's a mess or what have you, just get a big call to action and see what that does for your visitors, right? Or just put in a simple, clear message and get rid of the overly complicated explanation on your landing page and keep it really simple and just do one thing at a time. And if you're ready to really, truly rebuild a website, start with 1 page. And when you're done with that 1 page, give it some time and build a 2nd page. But you don't have to wait until the whole thing's ready to push out a completely rebranded, completely updated 10-page website that's going to take you months to produce. And then 3rd, if you need a website to follow, or if you, quite frankly, I'm giving you full-on permission, If you want to use the Helium sites layout and everything about it, colors, I have no problem with it. Just go for it. I would rather see you have a site that you love and that works for you and that follows these principles. So feel free to go look at a Wix and then copy our Helium site. Not a problem whatsoever. I'm giving you totally free reign on that. The biggest thing I just hate seeing as a fellow small business owner is folks that have an amazing product, but they kind of fumble right when folks go to try and go make that purchase. And if you can follow these 5 principles, I think it'll be a real game changer for you. So that's kind of everything I have in a nutshell. Again, me with a pre-COVID haircut here. If you have any questions, that's my email address. That's my phone number. That is directly to my cell phone. And at the bottom there, I have a call to action. I'm happy to provide a free website review, no strings attached. Happy to give you any feedback or tips or tricks if you want more information. If you go to heliumsites.com/SBDC, you can click a link to my calendar and you can book a time that works for you. But most of all, guys, I really just, I encourage you to try and do these things in baby steps. Don't feel like you have to do it all at once.
Joe, that was great. That was right on topic. Let me give you some of the questions that have been posed.
Please.
So, does too much content on your website cause it to go slower?
Yes, depending on the content. So it's pretty hard for words, so like copywriting or text, to make your website go slower. But having a bunch of videos and having a bunch of photos will absolutely slow down your website. I would encourage whoever asks this question or anyone on the phone to put the minimum amount of photos or video that you need to get someone to click that call to action button. And that may take a little bit of experimentation, but when in doubt, put less, right? You only need so many photos typically to show what you do. Again, if you look at the Helium site, we only have a few photos on there, and it's really to the point. And we do have the little bubbles that go up. It's a little animation effect, but we try not to have a video that's going to be longer than 15 or 20 seconds. So yes, be really careful with that, and work with whoever created that content, created those videos, those photos, and ask them to reduce them down for a website.
Okay, great. Next question is about a domain suffix. How important is it to have a .com website or a .org or .net? For instance, my company name is not available. It was taken by another company, so I'm only left with a .org site. Is that okay?
Typically, if you're not an organization or a nonprofit, you want to sort of steer clear of .org. And that comes back to a messaging standpoint, right? If I was heliumsites.org and you scrolled down and you saw that I charged X amount per month for a site, it might start to feel less than ideal, right? It may not feel, I don't know, it's kind of feel yucky, or I can't think of a better word. So I would encourage you to shoot for, a .com is always preferred, but I believe all 5 and 6 letter combinations, all of them, I believe they're all gone. So you do have to get creative sometimes. And there's a few things you can do. I think you want to look at your customers first, right? If you're going after millennials or people on TikTok or whatever, showing my age here, then you might be able to get away with like a .io or a whatever, right? But I would shoot for .com. I would always shoot for .com as me, maybe a .net, and others are okay. But you can get creative with the domain name, right? So a lot of times we see people will say, like something that we played around, we have heliumsites.com, but if it wasn't available, we might try get Helium Sites or go Helium Sites or Helium-sites. And don't be afraid to sort of play around with that. And even if someone else has the domain name that you really want, keep in mind, most stuff isn't being manually keyed in, right? It's coming from emails, it's coming from links, it's coming through text messages. So your domain is, in an ideal world, it'd be great to have the exact domain you want, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it, due to the fact that it's typically a tap instead of an entry on a keyboard.
Okay, great. Does the load time and content advice apply to a website with a catalog feature, like more of a sales platform? Guess that's
Sure.
like an e-commerce site.
Yeah, sure, of course. No, an e-commerce site, these are getting a little bit more complex. These rules do apply to an e-commerce site, but there are some things that you need to, have some wiggle room on. When it comes to your e-commerce site, you know, I would try to maybe like bury or like push back some of those pages that have, endless counts of items. So if I land on the site, I don't know if I want to have 400 items on my landing page because I can load all 400 items, right? Or you can have what's called pagination, where you like click through the different pages to get the items to load. But ideally, if you have thousands of items, I might land there and have that page be pretty simple. Have a handful of featured items, and then if they want to see more, I would take them to that category. So if it's shoes, right, you might land there and say, here's our featured 5 shoes. And then you say, oh, I want to see more shoes. Click me over to see all the high tops. And then the next section might be featured heels. And I click that and they take me to the page for the featured heels. But on that first page, we need to get there. We need to get there pretty quickly.
Okay. Someone said, I've got a website that gives recommendations for activities, restaurants, sports, things like that. Should I mix content, meaning if I'm on an event, give suggestions for restaurants, or try to separate that kind of content?
I think that from a technical standpoint, I don't think I have a big stance there. That may be more of an SEO thing. That will be next week's topic that I will not be leading because we don't do as much in SEO as we do with the actual construction of the sites. I think that comes more to messaging. What I would say is, from that call to action standpoint, if it turns out that 90% of your business is coming from restaurant recommendations and 10% or 5% from activities and 5% from hotels, I would focus on my one thing and say call to action, see restaurants or book a restaurant or restaurant recommendations. And then when they scroll on the page, maybe they'll see some other like sections that describe the other things you offer. But I would come back to that. What's the one thing? But maybe your one thing is just general recommendations. But I would try to boil that down to what is that one thing that truly drives your business? And it's tough sometimes, but ultimately we usually find that it's one thing that's really sort of driving the cart.
Okay, great. I skipped over a question. Sorry. I was told that GoDaddy can speed up my site. I've got a lot of pictures on my site, and I was told that paying extra money GoDaddy could speed up my site. Is that true?
I don't want to get in the business of saying anything badly about any other companies, but I have not seen a lot of I haven't seen a lot of speed improvements from GoDaddy. Most GoDaddy hosting, your website is on a server, which is just a computer, but a server in the cloud, right? With hundreds, if not thousands of other websites. So if those sites are getting hit with a lot of traffic, actually your site can get impacted and be slowed down as well. So I'd be careful with that. I'm not sure of the exact service you're referring to, but with GoDaddy, I'd be careful. They make a lot of money by selling a lot of small services to small businesses. I would be careful with that, and I would ask for some measurable results so they can explain exactly what that difference would be. Because they may be able to speed up your site by 1/10 of a second, but is that worth the extra, I don't know, $50 a month or whatever it is? But I don't want to say that it's not true, but I'd be really careful before making that decision.
Okay. Do you need to have copyright or data at the bottom of a website?
It gets a little bit more into probably the legal world than really just the straight technical world. But it's usually a good idea. And depending on what you're doing, terms of services and privacy policy, all that good stuff is good to have. But if you're gonna have copyright, you need to make sure that either when they code it, it automatically updates the year, right? Or you should maybe just set yourself a reminder to update it on an annual basis. Because again, to me, looking at this from a messaging standpoint and growing your business, when I go to a site that says copyright 2015, then I think, geez, they haven't updated the site since 2015. So in that regard, I would definitely keep it updated. But in terms of it impacting your site speed or SEO, I have no knowledge of it impacting either.
Okay. And do you have a suggestion for a platform or tool for retail e-commerce that you should look at first?
Yeah, I mean, Shopify is great. They have amazing customer service. They're really friendly. There's lots of Shopify developers out there that if you want to tweak or customize a Shopify website, they can help you with that. But I like Shopify, and it's really friendly and really straightforward.
Okay. Joe, would you re-explain how to use pictures and videos and still have a 5-second load?
Sure. So when it comes to those videos, you want to make sure that they're not too big. So when someone takes a photo, right, even on an iPhone, we're taking 4K photos, right? If I take a photo on my phone, right, it's a really, really high resolution. And that means I could basically, I could blow that photo up and put it on the wall. But when we're looking at it on a computer screen, we don't really need that high resolution of an image. So what we want to do is either the person that took that photo, if it's a professional, ask them to reduce it down to a size for your website. Or if you took the photo, you can go in and you can edit it inside of, I'm a Mac guy, I can go into Preview and edit it down the size of a photo. I can also go online, and there's plenty of tools to reduce photo size. And you can just upload your photo and it'll kick out a file. I also would encourage you to use JPEG photos because they're smaller. PNG photos tend to be a little bit bigger, which I hadn't touched on that previously. But most of all, take your big photos and reduce them down. I try not to have any photos on any of our sites larger than 500K. So if you're going to reduce it, smaller than that's great as long as the image doesn't get messy. But I try not to exceed 500K. So you could look at that as a reduction, like as a baseline to reduce to. And when it comes to videos, especially on that first page, unless you really have to have it, I would likely put it on another page, or I would link them over to something else that you own, like a YouTube or a Vimeo or something like that. But it gets messy when you have a 2 or 3 minute video on your site that has to load before I can see the rest of your website.
Okay. And some businesses just might be more photogenic, like a photographer or a graphic artist. Should they show more of their work on their website than, say, another business?
Yeah, I would think so, but I would still go back to the same thing. If you overwhelm people with content, it all starts to become noise, right? So I would take a few great photos if I'm a graphic artist or if I'm a landscaper or something that is just truly visual. I would have a few great photos that just make someone gasp and inspire them. And then I would have probably maybe a library of photos that I could show, maybe show 6 or 8 photos. But ideally, I would take them down the path, more of a journey path with lots of call to action. So like, let's take a landscaper. Big, beautiful photo of a beautifully landscaped property with a big call to action and about, creating, backyard escapes or something, right? And then as I scroll down, I would have like, here's an example of a pool we did, call to action. And further down, here's an example of a retaining wall we did, call to action. Here's something else, call to action. And I would more so go down the path of taking them down a journey and having big, powerful photos instead of just saying like, let me just spill over a bucket of photos on you when you land at my site. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have 100 photos on another site or another page, right? So you could say like, here's our example work, and they go to that. But on your homepage, I would take them down a journey, and I would always, less content is more powerful. And that way you can really focus on something potent that really sells what you're doing.
Perfect. That is great. Joe, thank you very much. You mentioned about next week, as I'm the one who's doing the program next week on SEO. And exactly every single thing that Joe mentioned today is SEO friendly. These are what he said is no different. And SEO is kind of half art, half science that kind of goes in with this. And it's not just doing, you know, you do this and you're going to leap. It's doing a series of things. And I agree with everything that Joe said is take one and you work on that. Is, you know, my pet peeve is I always ask people when somebody comes to your site, what do you want them to do? And the most frequent question I have is, well, give me a call. And I go, well, where's your phone number? Well, it's on our contact page. And so now you're making people will go find these 3 links, go on the treasure hunt to find my phone number. Is keep it front and center, just exactly as Joe said. Google has a tool for measuring your site speed. It's testmysite.think with Google, and it will tell you what Google sees as your load speed, both from a desktop viewpoint as well as a mobile viewpoint. So you can, that's where you can analyze, am I under that 5 seconds? Is testmysite.think with Google. And the most important thing is just what Joe said is update. And it doesn't mean, let me change a word here or there. Create original content, and that will help you more than anything. But pick one of those 5 and just do one of them, and then you kind of see how that change will happen. Joe, I really like the other thoughts about don't change your template sites. There's a reason why those templates were set up where they were, and most of the template sites have gotten these programs updated. So that's kind of good. It's a challenge of Google likes more words on a site, but humans don't. And it's like, do you build a site for Google or do you build a site for your customers? And it's not, you know, it's not an either or. You're going to compromise along the way. You're just going to have to compromise, because you can't be perfect for a computer and perfect for a human. But at the end of the day, it's more important to be what your customers want to have versus what a machine wants to see. So always be focused on that. Let's see. Anything else? Joe, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. Excuse me. Taking baby steps. Don't feel like you have to, like this weekend, you have to put on your hoodie and become a coder all night. This is one step at a time. This is baby steps. The one I do want to touch on, the Google Website Analyzer. If you run your site through that, there's very few sites that do well on that. If you run Apple through that thing, I think they get like a 40 out of 100. So if you run your site through it, don't beat yourself up over it. It's really a matter of they're shooting for like this absolutely perfect optimal thing. And if you run Google through it, sometimes they don't get 100. They're simple site with no pictures, no nothing. So don't beat yourself up over that if you go check that out. But again, Drew said it best. This is baby steps, and don't overthink it, and just pick one thing. And for me, if you're not mobile, that's your one thing. And then if you are mobile, get those calls to action, right? And if you got calls to action and they're different, then get into getting that content clear.
Great. Well, on behalf of Joe and the University of Small Business Development Center, thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to reach out to an expert. Joe is there to help you. He's a small business owner. He knows the challenges those small businesses face. So reach out to them, as well as reach out to your local SBDC. There are a few of us that are kind of digital friendly. So we've kind of done our own homework of these things. And I agree exactly what Joe said about the Google site. It scores low, but it gives you helpful hints. This is what you do, and it will tell you, if you do this, this will be a little bit of a speed increase. And you just got to go, is this worth the effort? Sometimes it's just not worth the effort to do. Well, with that, we will end our program. As a reminder, is check out the Georgia SBDC website as we deal with the reopening and our COVID-19 crisis. We have lots of resources that are in there. As a reminder, all of our programming throughout the state is available free of charge thanks to our CARES Act funding. So check out all of the programs that we have, and At our next Marketing Monday, we'll be talking about SEO and local SEO, how you can improve your presence so people can find you with like the Google My Business listing. With that, we'll say thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.